Day 2 of NFL free agency. What's up? Welcome in. Adam Hoge, Nicholas Moreano here with you on the CHGO Bears podcast presented by PointsBet. Use that code CHGO to live your bet life. What's up, Nick? It's been kind of quiet.
It has been pretty quiet, Adam. How do you feel about that?
Not totally surprised. The Bears did make one big move yesterday, which we'll break down. It happened, of course, like 3 minutes after we got done with our show here on the CHGO Bears podcast. And then otherwise, it's been mostly cricket. It's been weird across the league. There was some news that just poured in a few minutes ago of a former player moving on, reuniting with Mitch Trubisky, which we'll talk about a little bit. But no, I think it's fine what they're doing. I mean, they got Larry Ogunjobi. They got their three technique, position of need, a spot we knew that they needed to address, and he's a pretty decent player.
Yeah, and especially when you look at the Bears' depth on that defensive line and how critical that three tech was for Matt Eberflus' defense, Allen Williams. It seemed like they were going to address, and they did it with a guy that the Bears actually played last season in. A 3-year, $40.5 million deal with $26.35 million guaranteed. 27 years old, still has a lot of good football in front of him, but that was like their first. Ryan Poles said he was going to stay in the second, third wave of free agency. That was kind of the first wave, right?
Yeah.
In terms of what he wanted to do, but since then, like you said, crickets.
But it wasn't ridiculous money.
No.
So it's, in terms of what the timing of it, I still don't know that I would consider that necessarily like the top end of free agency that the Bears dipped into with Larry Ogunjobi. So it's a good move that makes a lot of sense. And they cut Eddie Goldman. They replace him with a guy who's a better scheme fit. I don't know if he's as good of a player as Eddie Goldman at Eddie Goldman's peak, but Eddie Goldman's peak was 2019.
It's been a little time now, and so it makes sense. And with this move, it obviously signals the end also for like an Akeem Hicks, and we kind of saw that coming. But, yeah, it makes sense for what this defense is looking for in terms of that type of player, guys that can penetrate, and that's exactly what Larry Ogunjobi can do, and we'll see if, again, he can build off of that good last year that he had.
Yeah, we'll address your comments, questions throughout the show today. If you're watching live on YouTube, we appreciate it. Those of you listening to the podcast version, we love you too, but just know that we are live every single day on YouTube at 11 a.m. If you want to watch us live, you can do that on the CHGO channel. Hit that subscribe button, hit those notifications so you know when we go live, and our interactions here have been awesome. I think we had over 1,000 people watching yesterday as free agency started, so we'll keep that momentum going, and we appreciate all the support here early on. You can follow me on Twitter at Adam Hoge. He's at Nicholas Moreano on Twitter, and again, chime in with your comments already. We've heard it on Twitter. We've heard it here on YouTube. People want to know what the hell's going on the offensive line and why nobody's signing at wide receiver. Let's start with the O-line because there was some news here right before we jumped on. But James Daniels is moving on. Sorry, Nick. I know this is just heart-wrenching for you.
I think ever since I ever asked him that question about Iowa being ranked number one, everything's just gone downhill for James Daniels and the Iowa Hawkeyes. So it's my fault. But, it just creates, reuniting with Mitchell Trubisky, like you mentioned, Adam, and being that he, is a guy that's still very young, going to be 24 when week 1 hits this season. But now there is another hole on this Bears roster. So have to obviously look to address that. I thought the Bears would get something done to potentially re-sign him, but going on to Pittsburgh.
Yeah, and look, maybe you and I look at James Daniels a little bit differently. James Daniels is a fine player. I don't know that I would have given him $9 million a year. He graded out to me as a low-end starter last year. I think that's kind of how you describe most of that line. Like, nobody's awful, but nobody's really great. And the Bears need to start finding great. And I don't
That's
really
true.
care what position it is on that O-line, but they need an absolute stud there at one of those spots.
Yeah, just to have some continuity with Justin Fields, too, because, like you said, there is no great right now. And we have to wait on Tevin Jenkins. We don't know what he's going to be or where he's actually going to play at, but you do need to get some guys there that he can build around, he can feel comfortable with. And in terms of the current group of guys that they got right now, they don't have any of that.
Yeah, so I totally understand moving on from James Daniels, but you got to find somebody to play on this line. One player I know that they were in on is Brian Allen, the center from Hinsdale, who just won a Super Bowl ring with the Rams, and they did not land him. And I think they could have. I think he was interested in coming here. So they strike out there for whatever reason. Then they let go of James Daniels. It's like, well, who's playing offensive line here? Like, eventually somebody needs to be signed. Now, one name that just came out and available is J.C. Tretter, who is the NFL PA president, and just got reelected by the players in that role. And the Browns are moving on from him. They just announced that. So that's a name, a guy who, again, I don't know that qualifies as like your absolute stud on the O-line, but it is somebody who is reliable, hasn't missed a game in 5 years.
Yeah.
It would be a pretty good signing. But then again, James Daniels was playing guard. So
So you still got to figure it out. Yeah, J.C. Tretter, he's 9 years in the NFL, currently 31 years old, has not missed an offensive snap since joining the Browns as an unrestricted free agent in 2017, starting all 64 games at center. So, again, providing that, just having that availability, something that a lot of these Bears players can't say that they've done themselves, but that was a name that I looked at. And when you look at just takeaways from the day one of free agency, a lot of those centers re-signed. You look at Ryan Jensen. You mentioned Brian Allen. Titans re-signed Ben Jones. Bengals add. So a lot of the interior offensive linemen going back to where they initially were at. So the Bears were if they were looking to address, that offensive line of free agency, a lot of those guys that were available are now not.
Yeah, and it seemed like there's a lot of wide receivers potentially in the draft in that second round. I don't know necessarily if people feel the same exact way about the offensive line. It seemed like it made sense to jump in with free agency. But by the way, it's been 24 hours. Like, we're still very early on in this thing. People need to understand that first wave kind of happens pretty quick. And then things can drag on for a while.
Yeah.
Look at some of these other players that haven't been touched yet. DJ Chark finally signed this morning.
Detroit.
Goes to Detroit, but that was a 1-year deal. I mean, maybe we should jump into the wide receiver market a little bit. I know we're jumping around, but that was bizarre yesterday to see Christian Kirk getting an insane amount of money.
4 years, $72 million, Adam. Like, just broke the bank in terms of what Christian Kirk is 25 years old, 77 catches, 982 yards, but 4 years, $72 million. Even Zay Jones, who the Jaguars also signed, a 3-year, $24 million.
Yeah.
It's like the Jaguars were just going out and just giving money to whoever they wanted to, and they're trying to build around Trevor Lawrence, and I guess you can't fault them for that, but I mean, they're giving them some big contracts.
Christian Kirk is the guy you regret drafting in fantasy every year.
Yeah.
Like how many times have you been like, oh, this is the guy who's gonna
it's the time.
take us to the promised land, and then like by
Jag's gonna jag. That's what Dan B says.
Jag's gonna
Jags
jag.
gonna, yeah.
That is a fascinating organization right now. First of all, I understand why they're spending. They haven't been able to win any other way.
They take a chance on Evan Ingram too. Like, that's a guy that I feel like every single free agency's like, oh, who's going to take a chance on Evan Ingram because he's got this talent. They do get Brandon Sheriff too, so a lot of all offense, right? And they did sign some defensive players as well, but yeah, the Jaguars.
They gave Foye, my linebacker.
Yeah.
The guy I thought made sense for the Bears. He went off pretty quickly and you could argue he was overpaid.
I think honestly everybody that the Jaguars signed was overpaid. But they're looking to build, like I said, again, around Trevor Lawrence, give him stability, and let's see what he can do with that. Like, if these guys pan out, no one's going to look at these deals and say, oh, they shouldn't have done that, even though the money is still an issue. But if Trevor Lawrence is having a better season, the Jaguars are finally showing some progression, then, hey, I mean, then you could see why they made the moves that they did.
I just want to alert you guys to this super chat from Jonathan Odden. First of all, thank you, Jonathan, but let him know what's happening.
So I have a fever-only prescription is more Will DeWitt. Get that man on the show. Jonathan, what's going on, man?
He's coming. He's coming. He'll be with us in a little bit, so you just keep watching, Jonathan. Thank you very much for the super chat.
We can see Will like in the bottom right corner right now from our vantage point, but yeah, he'll be here in a little bit.
I don't think that's how the Christopher Walken line goes, though. You know, like it doesn't really. No, but Will's coming. We'll have him on here in a little bit, and I know he has thoughts on all this stuff going on. And just you look at the list of players now at the wide receiver position still out there. Okay, I mean, there's still some interesting names. We talked about Jarvis Landry on the show yesterday. I still think he makes a lot of sense for somebody to jump in the slot, bring a veteran wide receiver presence to the locker room and for Justin Fields, but haven't really heard any smoke involving the Bears. Nope. Just, kind of me putting 2 and 2 together in terms of fit. Juju Smith-Schuster still available. He hasn't signed anywhere. I still think that's an intriguing player. Jamison Crowder is somebody I know a lot of Bears fans like.
Apparently.
Yeah.
Apparently like Jamison Crowder. So what about a guy like Byron Pringle? Obviously from the Chiefs, Ryan Poles connection there possibly. Again, not a number one, but a name, a body, someone who catches passes.
He's kind of like a Tariq Cohen-ish.
Yeah, we're on that 4.4 speed. Last season had 42 receptions, 568 yards, 5 touchdowns, all with Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs offense. So I don't know if you're necessarily going to get that here with the Bears, but again, it's a name, and the Bears are obviously waiting to see what this market is like. And I think it came down a little bit today with Chark signing that 1-year deal, because yesterday was just, with DJ or Christian Kirk making as much as he was, it's key.
I just want to jump in. AJ here in the chat is talking about how the Texans are rumored to be wanting to trade Brandon Cooks and wants to know your guys' thoughts on the Bears trading a later pick for him.
Brandon Cooks, he gets traded like every month.
Right? Every 6 months he's on a new team.
Yeah.
I feel like.
So at some point you have to be like, why does everybody want to keep trading him?
Yeah, you have to ask that question. But, you put him on the Bears, he's an upgrade for sure. He's constantly on different teams. But
who is that pitcher that he pitched for the Cubs, he pitched for the White Sox.
Edwin Jackson.
Yes, just traded everywhere, like constantly. That's exactly.
If you go to his baseball reference, it's just like every logo or he's got 73 numbers
like for every team. Like that's Brandon Cooks at this point,
and he has a no hitter. So
hey, there we go.
It's true.
I don't think Brandon Cooks
has
a no hitter.
I didn't know Brandon Cooks had a no hitter. Nah, we knew what you were talking about.
Yeah.
It's just going to be interesting to see what direction the Bears go here at wide receiver, because eventually they got to add somebody. Allen Robinson's still out there. Jakeem Grant. Let's not forget about Jakeem Grant.
Yeah,
he's still out there.
That's a name.
I wouldn't hate to see Jakeem Grant come back. They need to replace him as a returner.
Yeah.
Unless they're going to just go forward with Khalil Herbert returning kicks and I guess Daz Newsome.
Yeah. Nisimba Webster's not on the roster anymore. I was watching just Larry Ogunjobi just yesterday. Then you see Nisimba Webster, returning punts in that Cincinnati Bengals game. That's I forgot he was on there. I was just kind of looking at some of the available free agents just across the board. We talked about Rasul Douglas still being available, as if you're looking for a corner and maybe a 1-year deal, but. Yeah, obviously these names are going to start thinning out, and you're not going to get the quality guys that you're looking for. But that's what Ryan Poles said. He said second, third wave, and he's kind of staying true to that.
Yeah, I think, and the thing I always pay attention to is the premium positions. And it did not surprise me to see them jump at Larry Ogunjobi, because it's been pretty well established since Matt Eberflus was hired as the coach. They need a 3 technique.
Yep.
And so it's just an important position in the defense. I would say the same thing about slot corner. The one thing that you and I keep talking about, we were talking about it with Olin yesterday too, is how do they feel about Thomas Graham?
Yeah.
Because if they like Thomas Graham, maybe that's why they don't jump at a corner with a lot of money. But when it came to the 3 technique, there really wasn't anybody here on the roster that made perfect sense. I would even argue Akeem Hicks, if in a world where both sides are willing to bring him back. Let's not forget, Akeem Hicks didn't really take off in his career until he got to Chicago in that scheme that they're running, that they're no longer running. So I don't necessarily think it's a slam dunk, especially at his age. And as good of a player as he is, I love Akeem Hicks. There's no defensive tape I love watching more than Akeem Hicks. But it just, this is your prototypical guy that you go after and get in Larry Ogunjobi. You did not pay top dollar for him. You paid a good amount, but nothing that hurts you long. This isn't.
You can still make moves. You can still make moves for sure. You mentioned Akeem Hicks. My girlfriend's in the studio. That was her favorite player, kind of watching, but sad to see him go. Does that also mean Bilal Nichols is also going to be gone here, Adam? If you have to say it here, again, they did address defensive line, but they still need to add guys to that group. But if you had to,
I think it depends. Here's the problem that we go through, and unfortunately we've been through it a lot with new regimes, new coaching staffs. Like we're not gonna lie, we're doing a lot of guessing right now.
Oh, for sure.
Like we do, there are no tendencies. Haven't had a chance to talk to Poles enough to know what he looks for in certain, other than some of the details he's gone into with offensive linemen and body type that he likes. A lot of this is guessing right now. So Bilal Nichols, to me, I did not like him as the obvious answer as a 3 technique, but Olin brought up something interesting yesterday on the show, which is the idea of could he still be your inside tackle? Mm-hmm. Technically, I mean, I wouldn't call him a nose, but he played nose when Goldman was out last year and did okay back in 2020 more so. He did okay, and then he went kind of back to his regular spot last year, didn't have quite the same season. So as kind of an inside shade tackle, that is intriguing to me. I don't know if I'd want him to be like the obvious starter, but
rotation, again, how does that affect the money that you would associate to a guy if he was in that role? So all things the Bears really just need to figure out. Ryan Poles, and it also depends, like he said in that first introductory press conference, we need to go assess and watch the tape. What did they see from Bilal Nichols, maybe playing both those spots at times, and just seeing, well, how does this fit in our defense that we have now? So questions that we don't have answers to, and I don't know if we ever will until, obviously we see if he's re-signed or not. But, yeah, just like you said, Adam, just guessing.
Guys, I'm going to jump in real quick. Another super chat, this one from Austin Gutterman, who says, thoughts on N'Keal Harry from the Patriots?
I don't know if I have a strong opinion on N'Keal Harry right now.
He has been, pretty much disappointing there.
Yeah.
I mean, that's all you've heard from New England since they drafted him. So I guess that's the answer. That's a big hesitation from both of us on that name popping up. So I don't know. But keep throwing names at us.
Honestly, hey, maybe it's someone we didn't think about, and with the Bears right now, maybe they're considering them.
But he's under contract right now. So I think that would be in a situation where you're trading, and I don't know right now if you're trading assets or draft picks
for a guy that hasn't done much. To be completely honest,
even if it's for a late round pick.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't. Yeah, that's not a name that I've done a lot of digging on. What a trade!
You got to go get him.
Constructed. No. So I see Miles Jack's name in there.
Yep, he just got released by the Jaguars.
Ooh, he's a guy that I loved coming out.
Just so much production. I had over 100+ tackles last season, but, a guy that was highly regarded, obviously being a former first-round pick too. So, and the Bears do need to add some linebackers, some interior linebackers.
I'm glad that name just came up because I actually love that idea.
Okay.
Miles, maybe I'm going a little bit too much off my draft love for him a few years back, but this is how it works in free agency. Part of the reason why these teams do so much digging on prospects, you might wonder, why does the Bears only have 5 draft picks? They don't have a first rounder. Why would they still do all the homework they do on all these first round picks that they know they're not going to get? It's because they log all this stuff. And then when those players become free agents 4 or 5 years down the line, they've already done their homework so that they can better plan for those types of situations. And so, in these types of situations, we kind of do the same thing. And I like Miles Jack. He would be, to me, a really good fit in the middle of that defense paired with Roquan Smith. So a couple names have popped up all of a sudden here, and this is why you don't always want to jump at the first free agents, because teams acquire guys, they trade guys. All of a sudden, there's a rumor now the Falcons might go after Deshaun Watson, and wow, Matt Ryan might be available for a team like the Indianapolis Colts. Like, things change very quickly here in this wild week of free agency. And so for Miles Jack, all of a sudden he's available. J.C. Tretter's available on the offensive line. The Bears still could find their guys here from just players getting released.
And just to kind of add on to Miles Jack, he's only missed 9 games in a 6-year career, 513 tackles, 6.5 sacks, 3 interceptions, 4 fumble recoveries. Man, yeah, he started games at inside and outside linebacker. I mean, that would be a nice pairing, honestly. Now that the more I think about that, Adam, would be something that maybe the Bears can definitely consider, especially with them not having anybody at that position right now to maybe play the Mike linebacker.
Yeah, he's probably never lived up to What was the issue he had coming out now? I'm trying to remember off the top of my head, because I always looked at him as like a top 10 pick. And then he ended up falling to early second round. I want to say like there was concerns about a knee, or I don't want to throw something out there that's not accurate. But I remember like going in the draft, there was some concerns about something. He ends up getting drafted early second round by the Jacksonville Jaguars, but has had a nice career. Nothing that blows you away. Hasn't been a Pro Bowler. Putting him next to Roquan Smith, you're not asking him to go out and lead the team in tackles, which, by the way, he still did for the Jaguars last year.
Yeah, so it just going back to his draft profile here on NFL.com, if he bounces back from the knee injury, Jack could become a high-end talent early on his career. But yeah, just suffered a torn anterior meniscus that ended his season in late September going into that draft. So I think that would be that was the thing, the medicals for Miles Jack.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. All right, we are going to bring Will in here momentarily. Will DeWitt with all his thoughts on all this craziness going on. There has been a lot. But first, we do need to tell you that the best way to support CHGO, and we appreciate all the support so far, is to download the PointsBet app. Use code CHGO when you sign up. If you do that right now, you'll get 2 risk-free bets up to $2,000. But that's not it. If you make a $50 or more first-time deposit, you'll receive a free CHGO membership, which unlocks all of our web content, and you'll even get a free shirt of your choice from the CHGO locker. That's $2,000 in free bets, a free CHGO membership, and a free t-shirt from the CHGO locker, all for making a $50 first-time deposit at PointsBet. And if you have any questions about any of this, you can email pointsbet@allchgo.com. We'll help you out. Your home for live in-play betting just got even better, because now we got this to tell you about. Introducing PointsBet's new feature, the live college basketball same-game parlay. For the first time ever, you can build that perfect live same-game parlay only with PointsBet. Combine your favorite bets anytime during the game. And if you want more, you can also boost your live same-game parlays. Watch live, parlay live, and boost live with PointsBet. What a week to do it with the college basketball going on this week. And now online sign-up is available in Illinois. You can download the PointsBet app right now. Register your account from start to finish, all from your phone. Plus, during PointsBet Match Madness, you can earn up to $100 in free bets during each round. Just place a $50 pregame wager and get a free $20 live bet to be used for that round. So really, what are you waiting for? Once the game starts, don't just bet. Live your bet life with PointsBet. Gambling problem, call 1-800-522-4700.
So our next partner has a product that I use on a daily basis. I started taking Athletic Greens because I wanted to see what the hype was all about. And I've been taking my Athletic Greens after my morning workouts, and I can feel the difference right away. With 1 scoop of Athletic Greens, you are absorbing 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help start your day off right. The mixture of greens helps your immune system, gives you energy, and improves your focus, and that's why I take my Athletic Greens to help me get through my busy day. What's awesome about Athletic Greens is that it costs you less than $3 a day, so you're investing in your health, and it's cheaper than the cold brew that actually Adam has right next to me. Also, it helps support better sleep quality and recovery, which we all need. Right now, it's time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition. It's just 1 scoop in a cup of water every day. That's it. No need for a million different pills and supplements to look out for your health. To make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/CHGO Bears. Again, that's athleticgreens.com/CHGO Bears to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutrition insurance.
And we appreciate everybody watching, listening. As you know, you can watch these podcasts, listen to them free every single day, 5 days a week. But if you want to support us even more, you can go be a CHGO member and unlock all of our premium written content. It's for members only at allchgo.com. Still get all your podcasts, live shows, every team, every day, our post-game shows. It's all great, but you go get that membership. You get a free t-shirt right now when you become a member. Get all of our premium written content as we react to all of the news and coverage. Bears will be introducing Larry Ogunjobi at some point, and you got the draft coming up, so there's plenty of things to read as well at allchgo.com. And by the way, that's not just for the Bears, for all of our teams. We have reporters already out with the White Sox and Cubs in spring training, and there's coverage every single day. So make sure you get that membership at allchgo.com, and you can get that free t-shirt when you become a member. The members-only Discord is also available to you, the CHGO Lounge.
Now, real quick, Cliff, I wanted you to note here, he would like you to do these reads in the Ogre from Revenge of the Nerds voice. If you could do that next time.
Can
we work on that for tomorrow, maybe?
No.
Perfect.
No.
I cannot. But we do appreciate that challenge.
Should we bring Will in?
Politely.
I think the people
maybe
want to
Will
see
can
Will.
do it.
Yeah.
Maybe Will can do it if he wants.
Yeah, no, not me. Definitely cannot do that voice whatsoever. So, yeah, don't call my number for that.
Will, obviously we've touched on a lot here already on the show today. What's your number one takeaway from what the Bears have done so far?
As expected, Ryan Poles dipping his toes a bit into this free agency market. He warned us, as you guys said, second, third waves, and the first one's still kind of ongoing. And not that I'm overly surprised. He was one of the first moves that we kind of heard about throughout the free agency frenzy, but it was a really good one. I'm, as a Bears fan, super excited about Larry Ogunjobi. I know you guys were talking about maybe Akeem Hicks isn't the best fit in this defense anyway, but I do look at him like an Akeem Hicks type in Matt Eberflus's defense. I always called Akeem Hicks like a two-way defender. Ogunjobi does the same thing, really good against the run, and provides a ton in terms of the pass rush productivity. So I'm super excited. I think it's a clear upgrade over what we've had. If you're looking at the Bears cutting an Eddie Goldman and then signing Larry, if that's what we're looking at, like a cut and dry comparison, it's a huge upgrade for the Bears, and they're getting a lot more pass rush with Ogunjobi, who had 32 more pressures than Eddie Goldman last year, 6.5 more sacks. And then I think Ogunjobi had 12 tackles for a loss last year. And Eddie Goldman throughout his entire career had 18. So we're getting someone who can make a lot more plays in the backfield, still kind of coming into his zone. And I think with some good coaching, can definitely still reach a higher level throughout his play. And on top of that too, all right, he's coming off a Super Bowl loss. So he does bring that experience, what it takes as a team, kind of like the underdog role, getting there. And now coming to Chicago, kind of helping instill some of those values on this defense.
Will, what are your thoughts on James Daniels? Obviously, we talked about that earlier as well, but another hole in the offensive line, just your reaction to James Daniels signing with the Steelers and reuniting with Mitch Trubisky.
Right. For, as we talked about last week in the podcast, where someone had to go from center to guard because Nagy thought, the white-haired Trubisky connection was so solid, for Daniels to kind of follow Mitch is interesting on the surface as well. But no, I think we all know this does create a big hole up front that the Bears will need to sign, whether it is here in free agency or it becomes the number one need now, potentially in the draft without a James Daniels, because you're looking at, interior of this offensive line with, missing perhaps its best player now with Daniels going over to Pittsburgh.
It's all relative, though. I mean, best player, but
best player out of the bunch that wasn't very good,
who probably still wasn't worth $9 million a year. You know what I mean? Like, so it's kind of a problem either way. I think the bigger story is that the Bears haven't made another move there yet, and who the heck is going to play offensive line?
That's a great question. And when you look at the free agency market, there aren't a lot of, at least interior guys that I get super excited about right now. I saw in the chat a lot of people clamoring for, a Bradley Bozeman from the Ravens. He's 27, coming off one of his better years. Right now, the best center on the market after the Bears, missed out on a couple. I don't know about you guys, but I would feel like that's kind of like a consolation prize. Like you're kind of settling for someone at that stage, overpaying for someone you're settling for. So I don't like it. And when I look at how he fits, I see he doesn't really fit in a zone scheme type as well. So I don't know. I would not overpay for him just because he is, like, quote, the best center left on the market. I would like to see, how things settle. And again, if it has to be something addressed, via the draft, like, so be it at this point.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's going to be interesting what Ryan Poles does now, again, especially when it comes to the offensive line, and with him having that background as an offensive lineman. He knows he wants to get this right, and if you have to settle for a Bozeman from Baltimore, it's like, well, you're not – is that going to be the best move for Justin Fields in this offense moving forward, even if it is just on a short-term deal? But I think just kind of gauging a lot of Bears fans and just kind of maybe being on Twitter too long last night, just like, when are they going to actually do something? When is it going to be more than Larry Ogunjobi? I get it, but this is what they kind of laid out in the beginning, that it would take time for them to kind of pounce on people that they like. And yes, they got Ogunjobi. They James Daniels signs with Pittsburgh, so now it's kind of like the waiting game to see what Ryan Poles does next.
100%. At least with Ogunjobi too. The fact that it was a move that they made so quickly. I think a big reason for it too, on top of again, the ability to be a run stuffer, be that disruptive 3-tech in this defense, and provide a lot in the pass rush, is the fact that he's just super durable. Over 747 snaps played, each of his last few years. I think the last 4 seasons, which is twice more than Akeem Hicks. And Nick, we said it in the podcast for years. Sometimes the best ability is availability, and I think Ogunjobi brings that in bunches as well. So I like the pick. I know a lot of Bears fans are waiting for something more to happen, but the fact that the Bears aren't being super active right now, overspending on some of these players that have gone already, I think is a good thing, because sometimes I think patience is a virtue, and I think the Bears will be, they'll benefit from kind of playing the long game here throughout the rest of this week and the weeks to come.
Will, since you put that Eddie Jackson jersey in the background, should we expecting some type of surprise move there? Is he the next Bear to go? Because it seems like any jersey you put on back there, then they go away.
Yep. I mean, it was either right now I have Mac, and then I have Allen Robinson, and then Eddie Jackson, at least in terms of the framed jerseys. So I guess I wanted to go the only guy left on the roster for now. And if this is, the deciding factor, the Bears are watching and they're like, yep, Eddie needs to go because we'll put him back there, then, I feel bad because I'm sure there are going to be some ramifications both on the field in terms of money, unless they can trade and get that contract loaded off somewhere. But yeah, perhaps Eddie Jackson could be on his way out if the jersey ritual holds up.
Just don't get a Justin Fields jersey. That's all I ask. Well, just refrain from getting a Justin Fields jersey, and I think we'll be okay.
Okay. I'll don't look in my closet.
He's already got it. And now the Justin Fields era is over. Just like
Nick,
that.
You knew that. You're supposed
to keep it
yeah,
I kind of forgot about that. As I was saying, I'm like, wait, this man already has one. So, well, now we know what's going to happen.
Didn't learn his lesson with Mitch.
Just don't frame it, Will. Just
don't frame it. There you go.
I'm going to keep it in the closet and forget about it, and I'll only wear the Walter Payton when I'm out of the house.
Perfect.
Did you get your Mitch Trubisky Steelers jersey yet?
No, but my kid did. Mitch's the 2018 season. I bought my oldest son Mitch's jersey as well at training camp. So, yeah.
Yeah, my son has one of those too. I think over well. All right. Well, let's talk about these wide receivers because it's been a wild 24 hours. Huge numbers. Then all of a sudden today, DJ Chark's just signing like a modest 1-year deal with the Lions. So it's been a sort of a wild ride there. And so far the Bears have stayed out of all of it.
Yeah, they really have, and I'm glad, at least looking at some of those contracts that you guys already mentioned, that the Bears aren't one of those teams that have done that. Obviously, we were looking at the list of players still available. I mentioned last week I still like Russell Gage. Let's see if the market does kind of simmer down a bit, and we can get him on a good deal. I don't want to rehash everything we said last week, but I think he's a really good athlete, someone that can fit in this on his offense with both his red zone ability and also the ability to kind of take it and make it on some of those shorter routes as well. And he's only 26 years old, so still very young. I think he could be someone that could be a really good player on this offense. But I actually want to ask your guys' thoughts about like a Marquez Valdez-Scantling because the more I think about it, I know he has the Luke Getsy connection, but I get really concerned. Like when I look at his career, he's only caught more than 50% of his targets in 2 seasons. He has, just about 50% success rate when Aaron Rodgers threw his way, which Aaron Rodgers had a 65% completion percentage over those same years, and only 13 career touchdowns for a quarterback. Playing with a quarterback that threw, I think, 136 touchdowns. So they only caught 13 of those. So playing, in a different offense with a Justin Fields, can he actually elevate his game or would it go down? And I feel like based off of what we've seen with receivers leaving Green Bay and going elsewhere before, I would think that the trend would continue with Scantling kind of being, someone that would dip in production too. And it's already kind of iffy at best.
We have Oliver in the chat. No, he runs one route, just go deep, and he usually does it against the Bears. But I think, it would be hard to kind of project a guy like that to just get better after leaving Green Bay and Aaron Rodgers, right? I don't know. It just kind of seems like that would be backwards.
Well, and it just seemed like you follow the coverage coming out of Green Bay on a weekly basis. It's like this week Aaron Rodgers trusts MVS. This week he doesn't because he's been dropped. No, he's going to bat for him because he does believe in him just to get his confidence back up. And then he does get a nice touchdown catch, and then the following week he drops one again. Like the inconsistency there is just very obvious if you followed his career.
And something that you don't want to bring here to Chicago, right? Like, if anything, we need the exact opposite. Someone that's going to be a consistent person that's is open, will make the catches when he gets those opportunities. And
that's why I keep talking about Jarvis Landry.
That man is consistent. That man has been consistent for his entire career. Just real quickly, Will, imagine if, so obviously we saw, what was it? Christian Kirk. If the Bears had signed a guy like that for what he signed for, imagine what Bears Twitter would be doing right now in terms of the deal, the length, and a guy like that.
Oh, yeah. No, the torches would have been out in the streets of Chicago, calling for Ryan Poles' head if something like that would have happened, without a doubt. So like I said, I'm elated that we didn't make a move for a guy, for Christian Kirk, with all of that money that he's getting down there in Jacksonville. But Adam, you mentioned Jarvis Landry, coming off a lot of career lows. Obviously, he didn't finish the complete season, only 12 games last year. He's 29. Debating on, depending on where the money is at, you don't think he's too old to come to Chicago and be a difference maker for at least a few years?
Landry?
29 years old, yeah.
Yeah, no, I think he's I think as long as he stays healthy, he's still in that range where I just think it's a matter of what the deal looks like. I wouldn't want to sign him to, a 4-year contract. I just, on sort of a shorter deal to help Justin Fields, to help that wide receiver room, to give Justin Fields a, sort of a security blanket in the slot. Like, I just think it makes a lot of sense.
Well, Adam, I think you responded to somebody on Twitter yesterday about maybe someone like signing 1-year deals. Like, you still need to get Justin Fields a weapon for this upcoming season. Like, yes, maybe it might not be a long-term deal if it's 2-3 years or whatever, but yeah, 2022 is still happening. You still need to get Justin Fields some kind of weapons right now because right now there just isn't that. So if you see these 1-year deals, even if they're at wide receiver, that helps Justin Fields immediately this year. And then you can worry about if that person, produces or whatnot, and then you can go down the road later. But you still need guys that can help him right now.
Well, and also I think, Will, let me know what you think about this, but there's this idea that the Bears are just going to be bad for a year, get better draft capital. I got a reality check for you. They're already too good to be awful. I'm not, and when I say that, I'm not saying they're going to, make a run at the playoffs by any means. They're sort of in that mediocrity area already. They still have Roquan Smith on that defense. Like, this defense isn't going to be giving up 30 points per game. They're probably going to take a step forward with takeaways, I think, just because of the coaching change and the scheme change and some of the guys they have out there. And so I just don't really see a scenario where they only win 2 or 3 games, which is probably what it's going to take to really get a high draft pick. They're probably going to be more in that sort of 6 to 7 win range again. And oh, by the way, if they do end up in that spot where you're getting a top 5 pick, probably means Justin Fields had a bad year. And that is the worst case scenario for the Chicago Bears. So, I think people got to start thinking about that a little differently, about this idea that 2022 just doesn't matter. They're rebuilding. Let's throw this year away, get a higher draft pick next year when they have a first-round pick again. That scenario, to me, would actually be really, really bad.
Oh, I totally agree. Tanking is not an option, for the Bears right now to gain, higher draft picks in the future. We all know, even if the season isn't a playoff type of season, whatever the Bears need to do this next year is build positive momentum around Justin Fields. And, Adam, you're pulling on my heartstrings a bit, calling the Bears, pretty much mediocre, which they so are. And it's so frustrating at times. Like, they're not a terrible team. They're not a great team. Sometimes they're not even a good team, but they're not bad. They're just somewhere in the exact middle and keeps them in games, and then they lose, or they end up surprising a few here and there. But that's what kind of makes it tough. So I can see, Jarvis Landry on a 1 to 2 year deal to help Justin Fields, this year, potentially the year after that. I know for me, I would look around like a Russell Gage a little bit more because you could have some longevity there. But if you can save some money with a Landry on a couple of years, and obviously, he had to play with Baker Mayfield over there for a while, getting over here to, play with Justin. Again, depending on his perspective of it, maybe something that's interesting to him as well, and partnering with a Luke Getsy to kind of, free him up a bit. I think obviously this year, there's not going to be a bad year. It's probably not going to be a great year, somewhere in the middle, and they have to make sure they build an offense that can be at least capable, which we haven't seen in some time. Another receiver, and we've mentioned him, and a lot of Bears fans know him well, is Allen Robinson. It was reported there were 3 teams that were interested in him, or he was interested in going. It was the Lions, Jaguars, and the Chiefs. And right now, I know 2 of those teams signed big receivers to contracts right now. The only other one is Kansas City. I don't see him wanting to go to Kansas City and reuniting with Matt Nagy whatsoever. So does that keep that door open for a return? Because I feel like it's more open now than maybe it was a week ago.
That's a good question, though, Will. I mean, again, yeah, he always gets linked to the Chiefs, but there's that Matt Nagy guy that, they're kind of – there's a little bit of a falling out there. But he's the best wide receiver on the market. Easy right now. You look at – I think Odell Beckham is maybe the second closest at this point. But I don't know. I think it's just – if I were to project, Allen Robinson's not going to be on the Bears, but it's hard to see him on the Chiefs too.
But I'm thinking part of the reason why he hasn't signed yet is he's probably still – think about how much money he wanted from the Bears.
Yeah.
And even though he had this down year, he's probably still waiting to see that big offer come in. I just don't know if it's coming.
I think he gets more than Kirk, right? I mean, that's
not necessarily.
No.
Kirk's younger.
He is, but I feel like Allen Robinson showed more. It was a down year for Robinson, and I think is the outlier year. But maybe Christian Kirk just banked out and just made as much as he could, so it works out for him.
Maybe he had blackmail and something going on, over there in Jacksonville as well. So that could be some great leverage for him. But however you look at this receiver market and free agency, it was already thin, just based off of the franchise tags and the re-signings. It just got a lot thinner in a matter of one day. So I'm not saying Ryan Poles needs to hurry up and make a decision and get somebody. But I would want to, warn Bears fans, you may not get a top tier name, here right now as well. So, being patient and hopefully knowing if you do get a lower tier guy, like maybe, a Russell Gage is in that B tier, the Bears can coach them up and maybe help them elevate their game here in Chicago. Is there anyone else that you guys are looking at in terms of other positions right now? Because I already mentioned, Bradley Bozeman's the one I've been hearing a lot of Bears fans mention. I don't like it. Eric Fisher, the tackle from the Colts, the former number 1 overall pick, has the Eberflus connection. He has the Ryan Poles connection in Kansas City as well. I know last year wasn't a great year for him, but he was coming off that torn Achilles, which takes a while to kind of come back from. So he could be someone the Bears could bring in, solidify left tackle for a few years, which would mean, Tevin Jenkins goes to the right tackle. And then from there, what happens to Borum? Maybe they battle it out in camp. I don't know. But from now, you got to keep addressing, all these positions we've been talking about for a week now. I'm just curious, is there anyone on your radar that hasn't been signed yet?
Well, first of all, one thing just popped in my head as you were talking about that, because with the offensive line, what if Larry Borum is James Daniels' replacement? Like in their eyes, if that's the plan, to kick him inside the guard, and you still have Cody Whitehair guard, now your other guard is Larry Borum. What are you doing at center? But then maybe you go out and you sign like a J.C. Treader. Now you've upgraded at center. In my mind, you've upgraded at center there. You bring in a guy who hasn't missed a game in 5 years. He's a veteran presence. Larry Borum's now your other guard. So I know people are probably tired of me saying this, but let's just wait till the dust settles a little bit on some of this stuff. Everybody's panicking because they have made a ton of moves. Even when we had a comment up a little earlier about the Bears reaching 7 wins. Is that crazy? I said
they won 6 last year, and the offense was awful.
Right, and I don't know that the defense is that worse right now.
No,
is it worse?
Losing, Mac, and obviously you had him for 6 games.
That's what I'm saying. Mac didn't play last year, really.
So I don't know how much. Yeah, I don't know how much worse the defense got if it did, and then obviously you get Larry Ogunjobi. So, and again, it's a new scheme too. So I think that you can expect, like we were saying, maybe more of those turnovers with the new philosophy they have coming in. So,
but the whole thing is if the quarterback gets better and makes that jump, that's worth at least a win or two, right?
Yeah.
You'd hope it's the most important position in the NFL. Again, I'm not sitting here saying the Bears are making a run at the playoffs. I'm just saying that this idea that they're just going to be awful and win 3 games, if that happens, it's really, really bad because it means the quarterback is probably not working out.
Absolutely. And they had a tough schedule last year. People forget they had where it was home away every single week, and then again, some of the opponents they played, again, they beat the Cincinnati Bengals somehow at home, who played in the Super Bowl, but they did have a grueling schedule as well. Before we continue this conversation, I just have to tell you a little bit more about PointsBet. If you enjoy CHGO, one way to help us continue to grow is to download the PointsBet app and use code CHGO when you sign up. Not only are you going to get 2 risk-free bets up to $2,000, but if you make a $50 or more first-time deposit, you'll receive a free CHGO membership, which unlocks all of our web content, and you'll even get a free shirt of your choice from the CHGO locker. If you have any questions, email pointsbet@allchgo.com, and we'll help you out. And in case you missed it, online sign-up is available in Illinois. You can actually download the PointsBet app right now and register your account from start to finish, all from your phone. So what are you waiting for? Once the game starts, don't just bet. Live your bet life with PointsBet. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-522-4700.
And if you haven't figured out already, we have podcast live shows on every team every single day. It's the best place to get your content for every single team that you follow. We have post-game shows every time the Bulls play, post-game shows, Blackhawks, post-game shows. Can't wait for the baseball post-game shows to start. But even right now, as spring training gets underway, we have shows every day on the White Sox and the Cubs. Our Sky Show premiered yesterday. That was really cool to see. So shout out to that one, because that's giving access to Sky fans out there that I know have been looking for it. And we have that here for you at CHGO. Premium written content for members at allchgo.com. So that's where you go to get that membership. You can access all of the written content, get the merchandise. There's some really cool t-shirts up that you should check out. And you get a free shirt when you become a member. So that's a reason right there to jump in and grab that membership right now at allchgo.com. Saw a comment a second ago during the break that said, just not having Matt Nagy should be worth a win or two.
Or 4.
I know that's a joke, but coaching matters.
It does.
You did make a coaching change. You would think that a new coaching staff should help. Now, I do have some questions about some of how the coaching staff came together and some of the guys on there, because I don't, know that's a necessarily mind-blowing staff with some of the names, but there are, I think the Luke Getsy pairing with Justin Fields should get you excited, and so the coaching change should ideally be worth a win or two as well. Otherwise, you have problems there as well. Then you probably didn't hire the right coaches.
No, absolutely. I think Luke Getsy is such a wild card for me too. It's like, how is this going to all fit here in Chicago? But if it does work with Justin Fields, man, that does, I think, give you better opportunities to one, actually score points throughout these games and be more competitive. But yeah, well, I think there's a lot of factors why the Bears are really bad last season.
Yeah, no, we've all discussed that in full, and I'm just excited to look forward to, what they can do next year. And obviously, everyone has their different opinions on where it look like. And honestly, you can't even make a fair assessment until we go through free agency, we get through the draft, and we know who's on this roster and compare it to the other teams in the division. And we'll go from there. I know we've been focusing a lot in the offense, but I know the Bears' first move was on defense, and I don't expect that to kind of stop. So I was actually curious if you guys had any positions or any players on that side. I know someone I like that I'm kind of coming around to more is an Anthony Walker. Coming from, of course, he had that time with Eberflus from 2018 to 2020. He was his Mike backer for 46 games there. So he knows the system inside and out. That'll allow the Bears to kind of expedite perhaps that transition on that side of the ball, because you bring in someone who knows the scheme, knows the calls, and that way you don't have to teach, like a Roquan to kind of handle that. Known for being a really good leader. He can coach up those teammates. And Nick, I know you were tweeting out, you saw the parallels between, Larry Ogunjobi and Pernell McPhee. I see this as a potential parallel for, Danny Trevathan and what he did when, Ryan Pace came and reuniting with John Fox, knew that defense. They were both 26 at that time. So I do look at an Anthony Walker like that next, Danny Trevathan type, just for, those similar parallels I see between him and Danny Trevathan, and potentially going to Chicago and reuniting with the former coach and knowing the defense and kind of help instilling it quicker, rather than someone who has to learn it on the fly.
No, I get that. A guy that you actually mentioned on the last show, Will, like a Desmond King. They're still looking for that kind of hybrid player, right? He can play safety, he can play, in that nickel position. Also has return ability. It would make sense, and I don't think it would break the bank on a guy like that. Just adding in, seeing what Matt Eberflus, Alan Williams can kind of do in that defense with a guy of that caliber. And, he did play a little bit more outside corner with the Houston Texans, so maybe you put him inside and see how that can work for a guy like that. But, yeah, when you mentioned that name, I definitely did more research and just looking at him and seeing, hey, could this be a good fit for the Bears? But that was another defensive player. I did also have Walker on my list as guys. Like, if you don't want to, again, pay high priority for that inside linebacker position. We talked about Bobby Wagner because he got released. Walker would not fit that category of being a high ticket, money free agent. You can get him. He makes sense because he does have that history with Matt Eberflus.
If they sign Anthony Walker, I'm gonna have to bring back my Northwestern made Anthony Walker T-shirts for his Heisman campaign.
Did they?
I think it was it would have been for the Heisman. There's some. I have his logo. That's like an Anthony Walker logo.
You definitely have to bring
purple
that
shirt.
back.
Lawrence looks like he has thoughts here.
Well, I was just gonna say, Desmond King. Are you just trying to like fill the Hawkeye quota? Is that why you're bringing his name
You
up?
didn't have to say that, but yes, that's exactly what it is. We need to at least have one.
Just checking. Yeah.
Yeah. How about like on the offensive line where they actually have good players?
Well, they got rid of James Daniels already.
But get the good ones. Get the really good ones.
Brendan Scherf already signed too.
Yeah.
So
Trade him for Linderbaum.
there you go.
So, Nick, you mentioned Bobby Wagner. Obviously, that's like, the sexy name rolling around right now. And Walker's not so much, but obviously he will warrant probably a little bit more money, depending on how teams view his age. Because I think my concern with Wagner, even though he's a tackling machine like Roquan Smith, is the fact that he is turning 32. So when is that decline coming, and how quickly, will Father Time kind of catch up? That's my concern, when it comes to a Bobby Wagner. And I guess if I wanted to throw out the last two names, at least on defense, and we've hit on them before, so I'm not going to harp, but they're still available. Xavier Rhodes, just because he has that connection with Eberflus last year, he can be that outside guy. Kind of like what Adam thinks about Jarvis Landry. Maybe Xavier Rhodes could be the Jarvis Landry of this defense, an older guy on a team-friendly 1 to 2 year deal to kind of fill that spot. And then a Steven Nelson, who, last year was in Philadelphia, where he kind of overlapped with Ian Cunningham, and then also a few years in Kansas City, who, of course, overlapped with Ryan Poles at the time. And could also be, someone who can really fit in this defense as an outside guy. So those are just two other guys that are available at a position of need that would make sense if you're looking at the connections, even the productivity, and really just the team fit. So they're all available, and they're not going to be that first wave, types. So we can wait a little bit, and maybe the Bears will sign them and we can talk about it.
All right, Will, great stuff. We appreciate it. We'll catch up with you again tomorrow as we continue on. Maybe we'll have some more moves that the Bears have made. But there he is, Will DeWitt. You can follow him on Twitter at WI11 on Twitter.
Perfect.
Check him out. There he is. All right, before we get out of here, though, Nick, we got some other moves across the NFL that I just want to talk about, especially there's a giant quarterback named Deshaun Watson. There's been some news with, but none bigger than Chase Daniel getting another contract, $2.25 million to return as the Chargers backup. Nobody does it better than Chase Daniel. He never plays, and he always gets multi-million-dollar deals.
Him, Kirk Cousins, like those guys have figured it out.
But at least Kirk Cousins plays.
That's true, yeah. They figure it out, though. But Chase Daniel, man, that's what a gig to have, to be the backup and see 2 games every 3 years or whatever it may be, and just cash out. Like that sounds like a great job to have.
Yeah, there it is. All right, so Deshaun Watson, there's a pretty credible report that came out, a more than credible report that has the Falcons now interested in Deshaun Watson. So trying to catch up on this, the Saints and Panthers have already met with him. It sounds like they have offers on the table. The Browns, I think, are meeting with him today. So that's kind of, I don't know, not necessarily surprising. I mean, we talked about this yesterday. You can make a case for at least 25 teams that should be going after Deshaun Watson. The Browns apparently in the mix. And then the one that popped up this morning is the Atlanta Falcons, which has quite the trickle-down effect because Matt Ryan can still play football.
Yeah.
So does he become, a guy that goes to Indianapolis in some type of trade because they still need their quarterback? And obviously I think they'd love to have Deshaun Watson, but if you're the Texans, you're probably not trading him within the division. There was another one that just came out. Jordan
Schultz to the 49ers, potentially Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, but Matt Mayoko, who covers the 49ers for NBC's Sports Bay Area, does a really good job. Says the 49ers are not meeting with Deshaun Watson, according to a source. So, and that one kind of would have surprised me since they do have Trey Lance.
Yeah, you have a young quarterback and still someone that you need to see what you got in him. So, look, like you said, Adam, 25 teams should probably look into Deshaun Watson, see if they can consider it. And you're already seeing all these names, these teams come up.
It's from Jonathan Jones. 49ers are not meeting with Deshaun Watson, according to 3 sources. They don't even have a first-round pick until 2024, which is a good point. So
there's a Deshaun Watson not to the 49ers.
Yeah. But we'll be continuing to watch the Deshaun Watson situation because I don't know how much it's going to end up affecting the Bears, but it's still, the biggest quarterback name that's out there, and he will be on the move. It sure seems like. So
we'll see what happens.
Yeah. All right. Well, the Bears quiet again. Other than losing James Daniels, that's the biggest news from today. Not a big shock. I think the question is, do they go out, they sign a different guard? Do they move Larry Borum over to guard? Maybe that's the answer, but then do they address center? Just remember, stuff takes time a little bit. Like, there's still going to be signings next week. And then,
then we'll actually have like news related to the Bears to talk about on these shows, which will be great.
Well, and that's why we're here every day, though, because there's going to be more that happens this afternoon. There'll be a little bit more tomorrow, and we are with you 5 days a week here on the CHGO Bears podcast. Make sure you're following us on Twitter. If you're watching on YouTube, you see the handles right there. Let's get that follower count up. So if you're watching right now, you're listening, you got to be checking out these 2 Twitter handles in particular, at CHGO_sports and at CHGO_Bears. Of course, we have Twitter handles for all of the teams. You should be checking those out as well. I'm at Adam Hoge. He's at Nicholas Moreano on Twitter. A lot of good coverage coming your way. Check it out, allchgo.com as well. Get those memberships. And as I always tell people, Tell a friend. If you're enjoying the show, text your buddy who's a big Bears fan. Say, hey, you got to be checking this out. We're here for you 5 days a week, which means we'll be back tomorrow. We'll talk to you then.
See ya.